Welcome to a Leader's Journey podcast. I'm your host, Joel Gunn, and I am excited today to have with me Bob Pruitt. Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Joel. It's a real pleasure and a blessing.
Well, we first met probably close to 10 years ago now.
It's about right, yes.
And then got to spend a little bit of time together. The first time I really got to know you at all, though, was out skeet shooting. And
I remember that.
You definitely shot extremely well that day, and I did not. So.
I appreciate that. That was a lot of fun.
It was. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Your background, for those tuning in, a lawyer, and then eventually went to work for an organization that was connected with Toyota. And then from there, you went to a place called Caltex as their general counsel.
Correct.
And eventually their president.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about that journey, and then we'll see where this goes.
Sure. Thank you. So started out as basically a trial counsel in Houston, and did that for a while. And then there was actually a moment, I'm not sure if you've heard of Walk to Emmaus, but as being trial counsel, to me, it's a tough way to make a living, a lot of hours. So we're talking, 80 plus hours on a continual basis. It's a lot of work. And so went to this Walk to Emmaus, was recommended by my sister and brother-in-law, and that really changed my life. I think the Lord got a hold of me, shook me that weekend, and said, "This is not the plan I had for you, and where I'd like you to, be a better husband, a better father, and just and walk closer with me." And so from that opportunity, we got to go to Gulf States Toyota, which is in Houston, as its senior counsel, and was there about 5 years, and then had an opportunity to come here to the San Antonio area to work for Caltex. It's a manufacturing and blending chemical company in the automotive space. And then I was first came on as general counsel, as you said, and then about 6 years into that, was named president and was in that role about 10 years.
Yeah. Well, talk to us about that journey there, because, you did a lot of cool stuff prior to getting to Caltex, but kind of where I first met you, you were still involved in Caltex. You had a lot of culture stuff happening there.
Yes.
I don't want to steal your thunder, but
no. Talk
to us a little bit about what was going on there when you got there and where it ended up.
Yeah. So when I got there was 3 principal owners, and so it was a privately held company. But one of the main principal owners wanted to retire, and so he sold his stock, and the company became an ESOP organization. If you're familiar with that, employee stock ownership plan. And so I think we started off at 87% employee owned. And then by the time that I quit there, I guess it was, I'm trying to think, but it was 100% employee owned. When I think the Lord is part of his direction for me. So we ran ourselves. We were, I think, known to do what we said. We had integrity with our company, and we stood by our products and stood by our warranties. So, I think we treated our employees well. But I think there was a shift with the executive team as I took over, and really felt like we wanted to be a faith-based company. And so we took some strides.
So the company wasn't founded as
no
overtly faith-based company.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Again, good people, and many of them were Christians, but no, it didn't.
And how many employees are we talking about when you got there?
Yeah. So
when you left?
That's a good question. So probably when I got there, I would say around 60, and then when I left, probably 120.
Okay.
Yeah. And part of the executive team, we just started incorporating some certain faith aspects into the business. So one of it was we had a workplace counselor come, and as I, give recommendations to companies who are thinking, okay, I'd like to start incorporating some of my faith in the business. And one of the first things I'll tell them to do is to bring in a workplace counselor, because I feel like no better way to impact your employees COVID certainly brought it out, but I mean, people, we're going to have problems. We're going to have issues. Everybody is. Mm-hmm. And if you have someone at work that in a very confidential nature, you can talk about, this is what's happening at home. This is what's happening with my spouse. This is happening with my son or daughter. And to be able to, in a very confidential manner, or even something that's happened at work. And what the workplace counselor does, they can't reveal any of the discussions. They can just say, I had one person talk about a family issue. I had another person talk about a personal issue, those type of things. But if someone feels like they can go to work and, and have that kind of counseling, well, and that's really, it's an extra plus. And then on top of that, with workplace counselors, they have training to know when to bring up the gospel, to when to share the faith, because at first you just want to build that relationship. That's all it is. And there's some, counseling with that. But then, and they'll ask for permission to be able to share the gospel. And then that's a great way for people. Usually you build a lot of trust, you built this relationship, and not all of a sudden, and when the right time occurs, then they get to, find out about Christ and Jesus. So that was one aspect. We had Bible studies, we had prayer meetings. Once a week, the executives would come together, and we'd all pray about things that were affecting us, but our employees. We had different issues come up sometimes if the employee wanted to join us and say, hey, this is what's going on in my life. We would be there. We established an employee cup fund. So this was a fund that we kind of had a matching program with the company, but and then the employees would give, all voluntary. But, so we were able to cover, like one of the employees I can think of offhand, her apartment was robbed. And even these robbers or burglars, they were mean. they took all the stuff out of refrigerator and freezer and just threw it across the board. She had a good size aquarium. They broke that, and all the fish came out. I mean, just really horrendous stuff. And we came in, and she had, I think, her laptop was stolen and some other things. And through this employee cup fund, we're able to get her aquarium, the laptop, and actually went over there as a group to help clean up. And so we did things like that. There was another lady that was going through cancer, and we'd go to the hospital for visits. When she eventually, unfortunately, passed, we had a tree and a tree ceremony for her in her life, and just to be able to reach out to them where most employers, they think they can't or they don't. And I'm big on, yes, you can.
Well, it's interesting, one, that you're a lawyer. Two, you probably just freaked most business owners listening to this first few minutes of the podcast, freaked them out. You're like, we're doing Bible studies and we're doing counselors and we're doing, this cup fund, and we're doing, like, you're doing these things that a lot of people are like, hey, wait, this is modern America. Maybe you live in the Bible Belt and it's great that you're a Christian, but can you really do all that stuff?
Yeah. And the answer is yes, Joel, you can. And there's basically 4 principles that I'd like to tell people about sharing their faith or having these faith activities at work. The first one is that it must be voluntary. So that's real important to kind of go to an extreme. You can go on YouTube, but there was a gentleman that had a company, I think it was in the construction business in North Carolina, and he would have all of his employees come out and get kind of in a circle, and he'd, want them to pray. And so to even the point where he would say, okay, well, if you're not going to pray with us, then you can leave right now. And matter of fact, you can keep on going because you'll no longer be employed here if you won't pray with us.
Wow.
Now, that's an extreme example, but, that's someone where that's sloppy agape, as we like to say. your heart might be in the right place. I mean, that sounds even a little extreme there for him, but that you can, but you've got to be able to have opportunities where it's voluntary. So that's you can't coerce, you can't chide them into, you can't take roll. So if you have some type of Bible study, it's not like you have your list here and it's like, okay, Sally and Mary and Joe and Joseph and all these, and they're all there. No, you can't do that. But if you have it available, and the second thing is that I like to say is provide notice of the event so that everybody's invited. They don't have to come. They don't have to participate, but they know that it's going to be this time, this place, and this is what we're going to be doing. Now, my third recommendation is to have it off hours. So the reason for that is twofold. One is that it emphasizes the voluntary nature of the activity. And then two, what I believe is it lessens animosity amongst your employees. And I'll give you an example. So let's say you had a customer services department and you had Mary and Joseph and Sally and Stan. And maybe as the names imply, Mary and Joseph, let's say you have a 10 o'clock Bible study. And so you're thinking, maybe with the heart, you're thinking, okay, I really want people to be here. I don't want to, do it before work. That's difficult for some people, or during a lunch break or after work. We're just going to do it right in the middle of the day, and I'll pay them and all that. But think about a conversation that, let's say, Mary and Joseph, they go to the 10 o'clock Bible study, and then Stan and Sally don't go. They don't want to participate. So they're thinking, and probably the conversation they would have would be something along the lines of, well, sure, Mary and Joseph, they're a bunch of Bible beaters. I don't understand why they're going, but we've got to watch their phones. We've got to watch their desk. We're not being paid anymore. So take that out of the equation. Don't do it during hours. Doing off hours.
Yeah, because that could actually build, like you said, animosity or disdain, or certainly work against the culture. Like, well, why am I having to work and they're getting to goof off in there? Right? They're in there laughing right now. Exactly. So, it's just not a good reason to have it during the hours, even though your heart might be there. But so I really wouldn't do that. And then the fourth thing, if you're going to have any faith activity at work, what I recommend is have a statement of faith. And basically, it's just what your beliefs are, and you're putting those beliefs in. Like the owners of company ABC are followers of Christ, and we attempt to run our business or strive to run our business based upon biblical principles, something along those lines. It doesn't have to be really fancy or anything like that. And we know that's important because several years ago, it was a Hobby Lobby case. And what happened in that case is that you may recall the Affordable Health Care Act. And so what that meant was that was signed by President Obama, and one of the mandates that an employer that had 15 or more employees, one of the things they had to do was that they had to have abortion drugs, in their health care plans for their employees. If you didn't, you'd be fined, and the fines are steep. So Hobby Lobby is owned by the Green family, fantastic family, and they took their concerns all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically had three findings. The first finding was a closely held company can have faith. So individuals can have faith, but closely held companies can have faith. The second thing they found out is that you have to have somewhere in your documents, if you're going to say you're going to be a company of faith, then you need to have somewhere in your documents this statement of faith that we were talking about. And then thirdly, they said, if you're a closely held company and you have your statement of faith, then you can utilize that to, not have, in their case, not have the abortifacients, gender transforming drugs and prescriptions and all that was big over the last couple of years. There's been some mandate through the last administration that they were going to enforce that. And so those are activities or claims or defenses that if you hold yourself out as a faith-based company, you want to make sure that you have the proper documentation to have that. And so those are pretty much the four principles that you really need to abide by if you're going to have faith in the workplace as an employer. Yeah, I heard a lawyer speak on this topic of faith in the workplace probably 8 years ago. And this was not how he said it, and I'm sure there's probably a legal proper way to say it. But my takeaway was, he said, if you're going to practice your faith, then practice it overtly. Don't practice it in the shadows or covertly, because that's what gets companies in trouble. When people go, well, I didn't know they were a company of faith.
Right.
Because you're trying to be so clandestine about your faith that it's there kind of, beneath the surface. He's like, you actually get in less trouble by being overt about it.
That's right.
And I think that's in my mind, that's one of the reasons Hobby Lobby was successful, because as a kid, you open up the newspaper on Christmas Day and there's a full page ad, Merry Christmas, or Jesus is the reason, it's the nativity scene, right, and a big Hobby Lobby logo.
Yes.
So even though I didn't know the Green family and I wasn't involved in the court case, if you'd pull me aside and said, hey, is Hobby Lobby a Christian company? I think so. Yeah, because every major newspaper across America for many Christmases in a row, they were very overt about who they were.
Right.
And so there was if I were a Supreme Court justice, there'd be no doubt if somebody came out and said, well, they're a Christian company, I'd be like, yeah, every time I open the newspaper for the last 20 Christmases, there's this big ad.
Right. They'd be found guilty of being a Christian company.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So for companies that want to do that and are thinking, and I'm thinking about a Bible verse that talks about Jesus, and Jesus says, don't be lukewarm, or I'll spit you. I mean, very, precise that I'll spit you out of my mouth. And
he says, I'd rather you be cold or hot.
Or hot.
Yeah, but just don't be lukewarm.
Exactly. And that's kind of like these companies that kind of want, on one end, maybe some level of faith. They want to try to incorporate that, but they feel hesitant, or they're scared, or they got some concerns or worries. And I'm not saying those aren't legitimate concerns and worries, but it is much better to be overt about it, to have your statement of faith. I say early and often that you will let people know, so as even in the recruiting process. And so you can't ask someone that what church they go to, what faith they're in, what religion they believe in. You can't ask those questions. Those are all illegal questions. But what you can ask is say, we're a faith-based company. We have Bible studies. We'll have prayer meetings. We'll go on mission trips and help churches in Mexico, whatever it may be.
And sometimes we stop and pray for our customers or our employees.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. We might have Bible verses that are displayed in our offices,
or a cross.
Those type of things. And they say, well, you do not have to participate. You don't have to attend any of these, completely voluntary. If you don't participate or attend, even if you don't have. It will not impact your employment with us. It doesn't impact your benefit. It doesn't impact your benefits. It doesn't impact
your promotability.
You're exactly to being promoted. Your reviews, your performance reviews. None of that. None of that's impacted by participating or not participating in these faith activities. And so they know. But to go to the question is, that's what we do. That's what we're about. Would you be comfortable in that kind of environment? You can ask that. Mm-hmm. And that's really where you want to go, because they may not be. They may be Muslim. They may be Jewish. They may agree or disagree with you.
Maybe atheist.
They could be, or agnostic, or wherever they fall. Yes, but there's a mission opportunity, by the way, right? Mm-hmm. But by knowing that up front, and knowing that, and I would say even if they got hired, I would say through the orientation process, you mention it again. And then they don't have to have it every meeting, but there are, quarterly, semi-annual meetings where everybody gets together and your president or CEO will address all the employees. Bring it up again, because that way they know where they're at. And on the front end, they'll self-eject. I mean, that's been my experience, that most people say, man, you guys are a bunch of, hypocritical Bible thumpers. I don't want any part of that. Okay, well, great. This place isn't for you. That's great. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But if they feel like, well, gosh, I would like to be treated well and treated like the biblical Jesus, and that sounds good to me. I may not agree with you. I may not participate, but I like your core values. I like what you're about. and they'll usually come on.
Years ago, I was in a secular consulting setting, and somebody was going on about just how miserable they were in the job. I'm like, then quit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if you don't like it around here, go do something else. Life's too short to be miserable.
Exactly.
And it wasn't, there was no faith conversation happening at all. It just was, if this culture fit doesn't work for you, then go somewhere else, So, if I went to, some extreme culture of young people that nobody's held accountable, and everybody just walks in whenever they want to, and they walk out whenever they want to, and they're on their laptop or cell phone and interrupting meetings, like, forget the faith conversation. I wouldn't enjoy being in that space because that's just not how I'm wired. Right. And so I think what I hear you saying is, understand how you're wired. And if you're a good fit, welcome aboard. Right. It's not about the faith thing. This is just the culture we have. Right. And if you are a good fit, let's have some fun, rock and roll. Let's do some good things for humanity and make some profit while we're at it.
Exactly.
If you're not a good fit, like, my daughter went to work for one of these outdoor golf places that charges you lots of money for a really expensive experience. Yes. Oh, well, part of their interview process was you had to do a dance-off in a group setting in a big room.
Interesting.
And if you didn't have the personality to do that, you weren't on the team.
Right.
That's not me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not, as much as I think
Nathan said you were going to dance during this program. You're not going to do that?
No. Okay. No, that's maybe a future podcast. Okay. So they would have kicked me out.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I couldn't have been offended by that.
Right.
Because I wasn't their culture fit.
That's right.
Right. I didn't have that personality.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
And that's the same way if you're a faith-based or a Christian company. And so you got to be comfortable in that. They got to be comfortable in that. And again, you got to be careful because you don't want to say on the front end, well, it doesn't affect promotions. And you might have a situation that let's
and only people of the Baptist church get promoted in your company. That'd be kind of a bad thing.
Exactly. I mean, if you don't go to my church, then you're not promoted. Or if you we'll go back to Sally and Mary. Let's say they're up for a supervisory role. Well, if Mary gets promoted, and part of that is because she attends.
It's announced because she's attending these Bible studies and reflecting the heart of the company.
Exactly. And you have to base the promotion based upon a non-discriminatory basis. Mm-hmm. And so it can't be religion or even a support of religion or support of the religion you like or support of the church you like. You can't do that. You need to find a non-discriminatory reason or reasons why you're promoting Mary over Sally. Mm-hmm. And so that's real important, or even vice versa. Mm-hmm. That's important. There's a company out of North Carolina. It's called Coca-Cola Consolidated. Mm-hmm. So I know they're the country's largest independent bottler. They're traded on NASDAQ. I mean, they've got, 5,000 some employees. What they'll say is they really don't want to hire Christians. I mean, it's tongue-in-cheek. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because as long as you can agree to their core values and live in their culture, that's a ministry opportunity for them. Mm-hmm. And so, they're not looking for Christians. They're looking for opportunities to let people know about Christ.
Yeah, and I may get some hate mail over this, but if I need a brain surgeon, and he's an agnostic or an atheist, but he's the best brain surgeon, I don't really care if he's a Christ follower or not, right? Because I want the best brain surgeon. Now, if the best brain surgeon, there's two of the world's best, and one happens to be a believer in faith and that there's a healing process that goes with that, and the other is not, then I'll pick the faith guy.
Right.
But if it's just based on skill, sometimes you pick just for the skill. And I think companies do that too, right? You're looking for somebody that can really do that job well, regardless of their bent and personal preferences for religion or not.
Exactly. And, yes, if they're, equally strong surgeons and one has to be a Christian, obviously that's where we're going. But, there could be opportunities. So hopefully this will maybe douse some of the hate mail you might get. But think about this from a perspective of sharing your faith with the best heart surgeon, right? Maybe you're just dropping a seed with that. Mm-hmm. Or maybe through this experience, you get to share what Christ has done in your life And through you don't change the heart. That's the Holy Spirit. But the Holy Spirit used you to talk about Christ, and it gets him interested. And you go back a year later for a follow-up, and he says, Joel, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough, because you started having me ask myself questions about my faith and why I believe what I did. And did I believe I was going to go to heaven when I died? And what is heaven? And what is that about? And I wouldn't have done that if you didn't ask the questions. You never know, is the point. So hopefully that douses some of your hate mail that you might get.
Yeah. But so walking this out in the real world, you got to do it at Caltex.
Yes.
You guys start rolling this stuff out, a mid-sized company, small to mid-sized company. The thing that business owners and business leaders, CEOs usually wrestle with is they start to hear these things. It's like, man, I could never do that. I'm going to end up in court, right? I'm going to end up with a lawsuit. So here you are, 150 employees. You're at Caltex. You guys are rolling all this stuff out. How many court cases did you guys end up in over that decade?
0.
No, like how many?
Total. Oh, I thought you meant
I'm messing with you.
Yeah.
So you had court cases, right?
Oh, sure.
Probably,
I mean,
right?
I don't know, but a dozen.
But related to religion, zero. Right?
And so that's one kind of dots on the map, right? Another one is Hobby Lobby. So I was talking recently with its general counsel, and that exact question came up. How many times has Hobby Lobby been sued on this kind of religious discrimination claim? And the answer was 0.
Seriously?
Yeah. That's a big, that's 30,000 employees.
Stores?
And 1,000 stores. And
4,000 stores? Something crazy.
Yeah.
And 0.
Yeah. So... Yeah,
that's really interesting.
Oh, I mean, it is. But here's the thing: is that if you treat people with respect, so I'm thinking the golden rule, not he who has the gold makes the rules, but treat ones like you want to be treated. So, the Lord knitted each of us in our mother's wombs, as it says in Psalm 139, right? And in Ephesians 2:10, it talks about we're created to His masterpiece to do good works. So God didn't just create you or me in just some random time and some random place. He specifically created Joel Gunn for this period in history and for this place here in San Antonio, Texas. And He wants you to do good works. And so when we are kind of thinking about, well, I mean, sure, I go to church and sure, I'm working on my faith, but I just don't know if I want to incorporate that into the business and all that. But think about that. Does the Lord have you in that place of influence, just to, make a good living for your employees? That's important, right? There's to put food on the table and pay for bills. That's important. But is there something eternal that you can influence, that's why maybe the Lord has you there, not just for good return on financial investment. And, when you look at it like that and you start to say, like, I'll get back to the Caltex example. So during this 10-year period, we went from a value of $350 per share to $33,500 per share in a 10-year period. We were named through Inc. magazine. They have the fastest growing companies each year. 7 of those 10 years, we were on that list. Wow. Then we were also recognized as the best place to work regionally, like San Antonio Business Journal, but also nationally. And this was on a perennial basis. So, I mean, really hitting on all cylinders. We were an ESOP company, so they have a national ESOP organization. And at least during the period that I knew, we were the only company that won 2 national communication awards, how we communicated ESOP and the value of ESOP to our employees. So, from all measures, hitting the ball out of the park, and all thanks to God. This is God's hand, not ours. But the greatest thing we did was to provide opportunities for our employees to know about the love of Christ. and many of them came to Christ. One became a pastor. And so that's the greatest thing I think that the executive team and I was ever a part of was that.
Creating that environment.
Mm-hmm. And so, and I don't know, who knows the ripple effect? I mean, there may not have been people that maybe professed Christ, but seeds were planted. And maybe if you go, to doc today, they say, man, what a difference. What a difference. And so that's what's exciting when you can have this eternal impact. The material impact, that's important, right? Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, Mother Teresa, without the money, there's no mission. But if you're making money, and I'll tell you two things about that. So you look at during the time where we switched to be more of a faith-based organization, that's when our growth really took off. Remember the Great Recession that happened around the 2008 timeframe? Yeah. From 2008 to 2009, right in the thick of the Great Recession, we were in the automotive industry. We lost only 1% of revenue.
Wow.
If that's not the hand of God. So, and you don't do it for that purpose. Yeah. I mean, we could have gone down in the toilet and you're still making an eternal impact. So that's much more important. But I'm just saying, is there something about engaging your employees because you're treating them like Christ, treats you, and you're trying to follow the golden rule and treating others like you have respect. They may disagree with you, but if as a human being that God created, knitted us, that we have no more value than anyone else, no matter what they're doing. So if you treat people with respect and with dignity, I think that goes a long way. And certainly you're putting yourself out there. So you got to be on your best behavior, so to speak, right? Because if you're going to put Christianity out there that we follow this, well, then you better kind of walk the walk, because that could really be damaging if you don't. But that's a great accountability.
Yeah.
That's are we going to go this way about this contractual thing and kind of be a little shady, or do we have a different leader, the Lord, that we're going to go this way and we're going to do the right thing, right time, even if no one's watching? And that's, I think our employees watch us more and know more about what's going on than we give them credit for. And
so do our kids.
And our kids too. So employees and kids, be careful. That's right. Watch out.
Bob, this has been great. Any final thoughts as we wrap up the episode?
Yeah, I would just, if you're in a situation as an influencer in work, I would just pray that to the Lord that He provides opportunities. That what does that look like? And take small steps. Get that workplace counselor put in, and then maybe if that goes well, then maybe have someone, help you run a Bible study. But there's just the impact, even with believers, to be able to come to a place of work and, it just, again, the engagement you have, I can think of no better engagement than when you have followers of Christ working together at a place and being fed at that place.
Yep. Yeah. And a couple of resources where somebody's listening and go, man, I want to get more info on something like this. Where would they go? You talked about workplace counselors. I assume you're talking like marketplace chaplains, corporate chaplains, those kind of organizations. I
am. And I would recommend that you go with a national firm such as Corporate Place Chaplains of America or Marketplace Chaplains. The reason for that is that one of the benefits of having an organization that's nationwide like that. So let's say that we're in San Antonio and your business is in San Antonio. You have a workplace chaplain for one of those two organizations, and you have an uncle that passes in Pittsburgh. Well, because of their national organization, they can have as a representative for your family to go to the viewing, for example, or to go to the hospital if he's sick on your behalf. And so that's a great benefit. And also the training that they have. We talked about the process, that you don't want to have someone that doesn't know what's going on, that hasn't had the training, because they might move too quickly to sharing the gospel. And you really, that can do more harm
and wrong ways to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're trained to do it well. They also have liability policies. So if a problem comes up about what's done or said or confidentiality that may be broken or whatever, they have an indemnity and an insurance agreement to back up and provide defense and counsel to the company. So that's really a strong recommendation to go is with one of those.
And then you also mentioned have a statement of faith. Where could they get a sample statement of faith?
Yeah. So there's an organization that I worked for 6 years. It is called Alliance Defending Freedom. And so if you go to adflegal.org and then you ask for Faith in the Workplace, it'll take you to the Faith in Workplace, and you can get a free download, a PDF of their Faith in Workplace guide.
Examples of that and other things in there.
Exactly.
Okay. And then you said accountability. How would a business owner hold himself accountable other than wife and employees? Like, any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that the more that you share and that you're vulnerable, and so I know that although when I first did it and shared, maybe some type of trouble that I'm having in my life or some type of challenge that I have or some type of family issue, and I share that with your employees, I kind of thought maybe I was being too vulnerable and maybe I was, holding myself too accountable. I don't think that's possible. I think that they really appreciate you being human, that you're going to make mistakes, but you have, a Lord that protects you.
Any organizations you'd refer business owners or CEOs to kind of maybe help walk this walk? I
do. So when I was helping run Caltex, I was a member of the C12 organization. Okay. And so there are others out there. There's Convene, Truth at Work, His Way at Work. There's others. But I think the gold standard is C12. And so if I'm a businessman or woman that's helping lead an organization in this area, I would reach out. There's a Central Texas C12 group that basically is from San Antonio all the way up to Austin. And I would contact them because I know as a member that the benefits I have from basically 12 men and women across the board and they're not competitors, to be able to answer questions that I have or share their experiences.
Or question your answers.
Exactly. All that there's no finer organization that I'm aware of that really helps support Christian business owners and CEOs.
Great. Well, those are some great resources. Thank you so much for that.
You bet.
And thanks for being on the podcast.
It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of A Leader's Journey podcast. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to our channel.